How y'all be, man? Hairless makes a blue sea. It's me, man. We back. I know it's been a minute. More of a scheduling thing. Last week got a little busy for me, and well, the end of last week into mid this week. Then on top of that, we didn't have a chapter, so I was late with 1025, which I will talk about some today. But I really wanted to talk more about the characterization of Yamato and Kaido and some things that maybe I just read it different, compared to how Kaido is talking now and, things like that. But just wanted to update y'all on some info. Everything's fine. Like I said, I was late with it and I knew we were on break. So I'm like, I'll do it at the end of the week. I got some free time this weekend. I can finally go around and watch some videos. I watched a few things, but maybe only about an hour's worth of, you know, content in the past almost week and a half, man. It's been pretty boring as far as that part. I know there's some crazy takes out there probably based on some of the thumbnails I've seen, but that's what I'll be on. I've started a little bit today. I've caught a few people and I was like, ooh, I didn't see that one coming. The community, man, some of the narratives y'all get stuck to. I guess I'm like that too though, right? We're all crazy. But and then the other thing, I haven't forgot about tripping through time. I'm still, we just left Arlong Park. Nothing's changed. I'm still probably Monday or Tuesday. More than likely Tuesday morning. I'm thinking I'll be done with that section of chapters. So we'll get to talk about that stuff because you know what happens once we leave Arlong Park and some of the things, as usual with the story, right, that are just lightly touched upon during that time period that are a heavy focus now happens quite a bit right after our own park. So that'll be cool. So let's get into 1025. I'm going to talk about the chapter shortly because it was a short chapter to begin with, but the statements that some of the characters made and the implications on their personality and what it could mean for the future of the story, um, for me, it changes slightly. Not too much from what I think is going to happen, right? But it does change things just because I didn't know Kyle thought the way he did. Like it started with the backstory, right, where we got into Yamato and some of the things. But you know what? Let me just go chronological, right? First of all, the cover spread, not the cover chapter, but the color spread. We might have to talk like separately a discussion just about that because I got some crazy ideas. I know everything on it. Some of it is probably just by accident, but you know for a fact that there's things done in this color spread on purpose as far as character placement and stuff like that. So that was crazy, but man, I know it took a lot of time, but that was fire. And then we get the Usopp cover chapter, the big liar himself. You already know, especially with what was the last week, almost 2 weeks now, by today's date. The situation with Usopp talking about Cockers hockey, and then we get a cover chapter right after that. It's just like the OT thing all over again. So we'll see what's up with that. But Usopp got the drip. He got it down on point. Our man's was fresh. And we know how he is about taking memoirs and his quote unquote logbook, so to speak, just like Sabo, right? End of the story, Usopp, man. The adventures that he's gonna have for people. I wouldn't even be surprised if he comes up with the next Sora of the Seas series that was popular, right, and especially in the North Blue. I wouldn't even be surprised now that I think about it, that might be where that's going with him, where he has his own comic strip at the end of the story. That'd be dope. But anyway, Luffy is trying to get Momo to fly and all this nonsense, and the funny part to me is because y'all know y'all been through this in real life, whether it be your family members, people you work with, your friends, your partner, whoever, right? When you're going to do something that you're already going to do, nothing is more annoying than somebody rushing you. Now, I get it, they're in an extreme situation, and I understand Luffy's methods, right? Because for some people, extreme stress can help them deal with whatever their fears are. We know that, and it's shown in the story with some of the parenting techniques, so to speak, that Oda puts this theme in here quite a bit. But in real life, it's just annoying. Like, it does help, right? Some of us, when you were taught to swim, right? Some of y'all were just like me, you're just thrown into a pool like the very first time. Here you go, figure it out. You know, nobody's gonna let you drown, obviously, but they they they're a little happy about letting you experience that, right? And that's kind of like the mentality that Luffy has with Momo, their relationship, almost like an older brother in a sense, where you know there was a time where he was the crybaby, and now it didn't last for long. But you know, when he was little with Ace and Sabo, he was Momo in a sense. And in a lot of ways, he would still be brave enough at points, just like Momo. But they're very similar. It's just that Momo's probably a lot more. Their paths were different. You know, he's more educated. Even for a kid that age, he can have conversations with an adult that Luffy couldn't at that age, just because they're different people and they're raised different. But they're essentially they act quite the same. If you're talking about the earlier years, so that's kind of like I could tell, like with Luffy, why I like that he does that to him is because that's probably something to himself that he couldn't stand about himself initially, was being a crybaby, where he's like, I can't be that guy. So watching Momo go through the same thing, he's just like, look, the sooner you get over this, the better. So trust me, I understand, but it's still annoying because it's like my pace, my time, you know. But of course, whoa, no, 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 is out here, so you can't just, you know. I think it's just an interesting dynamic. Sometimes it could be annoying, but in this case, I actually like it. So while this is going on, of course, we see Bum, because that's what you already know. That's what I be calling her. She's done a few good things, but most of her existence has just been unfortunate for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it was the law thing. Like, you know, law, that's my guy. And it just made me not like Shinobu. It just, I don't know. I have no idea. But, yeah. Just her being there and the rest of the law is trash heap in the background. I'm just like, man, all of you are absolutely useless. They're all smile tier level. Like, you know, like, why did Rayleigh should have left you? I mean, Law should have left you where you were at. Nah, I'm joking. That's taking it too far. But now we cut to Onigashima. And y'all know every time I see Onigashima in my mind, it's the senpai of the Santoryu, man. Every time I see that horn missing, we know why it's gone. The legend of this man in Wano he'll be his own lore by the time he leaves this. I mean, he already is technically with just the Ryuma thing in general. And I'm not even going to get into the Shimasuki stuff. Even without that, right? He had no relation to them. He would be a legend just because of what he's done already. And then when they find out what happened in Rufies, Zoro was already known worldwide. He had a reputation at the beginning of the story to the point where even Mihawk knew who he was before they met him. And that's all I'm going to say. Now we get on to, oh, no, 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 no. My man, one clap Kaido, man, because it's one, and you're done, son. You already know what time it is, man. Versus Yamato. They back at it again. And there's a lot of things that happen in this short, like within the action, you know, the emotional and psychological attempts by Kaido. We've seen this. I mean, that's a normal thing for villains or and somebody you're opposing, right? Um, whether they can defeat you physically or not, they're still going to do other stuff, psychologically speaking. Or even if you just compete, you know, you play sports, you should know already this is a normal thing, trash talking and all of that, right? It's just a part of it. But what's interesting to me is the way Kaido does it, because it changes some of the thought process about what I thought about him and how he views people as a whole. That seems to be a lot different the past few chapters, as Oda's been more comfortable slipping in the word, Oni or ogre, whatever. Obviously, I always support the Viz, but whatever. To me, they're interchangeable. You guys know how I am. I don't try to get too caught on a specific word or term. It's just very rarely is it ever that important, unless it's something specific, right? Like uh, how like a number or a time or a location. I kind of understand that, but the other little stuff like, oh, he said, I don't care. You guys know what I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about, so why would I do that to you, right? But Yamato has a lot of techniques at the arsenal. I'm really impressed. Not just because of the mythical zone thing or the Oni thing or just the raw strength, the durability, the range of techniques and what seems to me something I've been noticing the past few chapters I hadn't paid attention to, and I'll bring it up at the end of the chapter because I have an interesting question about Yamato and how this could play into this whole Oni and human and how the two coexist and her acceptance about her bloodline and Kaido as a whole. It's not something I really thought about because I always thought about Yamato being Odin, but I'll get into it when I get there. You'll see what I mean. And Yamato, because this is what started me to think, like, Yamato, besides having access to just a broken fruit, right? And all the hockey that you need in this series to be a threat on your own. The amount of different techniques that are used, some of them look, it's almost like not a One Piece character. Like, to me, like, I think as far as the Zoan is concerned, she may have displayed the biggest variety because most of the time with zones we've seen they're very I won't say one dimensional, but they're portrayed a certain way on how they fight and stuff like that. Yamato's been totally different though. From the like this glacial Mirror Mountain thing. I think they translated Mirror Mountain into Viz, something like that. But it's just like Gar's thing, the sand armor thing. And I was like, oh, that is this this is what I want from my characters, especially if they're gonna to join the crew, because Yamato could fight anybody. I don't want to overrate the strength just because the familiarity, like I stated before, and the fact that Kaido's not taking Yamato serious. He clearly doesn't. Um, I I'm not sure why that is, honest. Or maybe it's just a Kaido thing, right? I'll get into that in a few. But yeah, these moves from Yamato and jumping in the air and just coming down, I was like, man, Yamato's crazy, man. I want to see Yamato fight more. I don't even care who it is at this point, Straw Hat or not. Like, we have to keep up with Yamato for the rest of the series. Like, we just have to. Too impactful of a character, too big of a personality because of how she, like, the attempts in this chapter with Kaido. He's been trying to break her psychologically, like how he does with other people, like he did in the cave. Oh, here, you can fight over food, but I'll tie my child to a rock first, by the way. And some of the things he says about humanity this chapter is not, it's not the perspective that I thought he had, but really it's just strength that he cares about. Where it doesn't matter what creature you are, as long as you have strength, to him, that's all that matters. However, if you don't have strength, if you're a human, you're a lowly human. And that's not really an idea. I didn't think he had that kind of bias in him. I thought he was just like, hey, you got hands, and that's it. Like, I didn't give him any more depth than that. And for him to basically portray some of the same biases, right, that are already within the series, as far as like how the celestial dragons view humans that aren't them, right? How they view mink or fishmen or anybody who's not a celestial dragon. Kaido's the same way. It's just that he replaces strength for that. Whereas, like I said, Shanks is a regular dude for as far as we know. But we know he wouldn't say this to Shanks. He wouldn't say this to Whitebeard. Not because he's scared of him. He's not scared of anybody. But he respects strength more than what you are. And then, so in one note, it's like, I kind of see where that comes from. But on another note, that's trash to still have a bias to think that, oh, well, Yamato, no human would ever accept you. And you're above them anyway. So why would you want to have a friendship with him? Or you're, and then this, kind of like the Joy Boy thing that kind of talked, like brought up that whole situation. He tells Yamato it's her fate as an ogre or Oni. So, like I've talked about before, the religious sort of aspect with Kaido, we've seen certain things be respected by him. And then the whole point of him being a dragon and how that is viewed as a deity in Wano in relation to real life mythos and things of that nature. And Kaido having the bias towards humans, it makes him more trash now, which I like because he shouldn't be a good guy, right? Everybody can't, like, he's funny and he's strong and all that other stuff, but he's trash because he's trash as a parent. And like I stated last week, one of the biggest things I like about Yamato, even at a young age, was the level of insight. Because you see a lot of times your mentor, parent, whoever, they could be trash. And that's not something you find out until you're older. You realize as an adult, like, oh, oh, just because you're my parent, it doesn't exclude you from the trash area. And a lot of times you end up fawning over that acceptance, right? Because that's your parent, that's natural. But what I like is Yamato is not built like that. Even as a kid, right? And it could be based on maybe whatever happened between Kaido and her mom or just anything where she knows that Kaido is trash. Like, yeah, you might be strong and all this other stuff, but you try to take people's freedom and their free will. That's everything they have initially. That's all you're born with. If you're lucky, most of the One Piece universe are not born into freedom of any kind. So that's what I respect about her the most. That's why sometimes, like I told y'all before with the Odin thing, it would get annoying, not just because of her not being her own person, but when Oda started letting her talk more, you can clearly see she already has self acceptance. It's just that's probably part of her gag, so to speak, or whatever, because she is very friendly to begin with. She hasn't really, even with fighting Kaido, she hasn't said anything disrespectful of any sort. When she cracked ulti, didn't say nothing to her. Like, everything she's done has been all about respect, which clearly she learned through, the values instilled her that she saw from the people of Wano. Even Kaido brought it up, like, you're running around here like you from Wano. Kaido, I don't know if you ever heard this phrase, homie. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at, And if Yamato's been basically living in Wano her entire life, she's from Wano. And I brought that up a long time ago, right? When I was talking about the things that I didn't like about Yamato. That one of them I phrased, to me, I thought I knew what I was trying to say, but I didn't say it right. But it got brought up in this chapter. I'm like, see, this is why there's an Oda and not a me, because he can say these things better than me. And Yamato, Kaido trying to do these things is basically him trying to break her will. He even brings it up. People should be ruled through strength, which how we see how his crew is built. And how the situation with the All-Stars, right? Oh, if you want to be a headliner, you need to be able to take out a headliner. That's why, like, Who's Who, which we don't know what he's on right now. He's probably still knocked out somewhere. He was like, cool, bet that. I'm coming for the top spot. Because at the end of the day, as much as it doesn't matter how long Kaido's probably been with King and Queen in that position, if somebody stronger comes along, he's not going to have any loyalty to them on the same level. I don't think he's like going to try to kill him or nothing like that. It's just you lost your spot. It is what it is. Tough break. You know what I mean? But again, I kind of understand that thought process from a pirate standpoint, because not only from getting older, but if you guys aren't fighting every now and again, you get rusty, you run into that crew that nobody knows about, Like there's probably, imagine if there's another crew like Shanks's crew, a bunch of guys you don't know who they are, creative player looking cats, and they just come up and just start clapping everybody. You know what I mean? And they're all top tier level. It's just they keep they're kind of like Cypher Pole, right? They don't exist. So you know what I mean? I understand Kaido's thought process because if my top guys get soft because they think they can't lose their spot, as a whole, it'll make our crew weaker. So there's some aspects of what Kaido's on I understand, but that to me should only would only apply to a crew strength standpoint, not counting for personality or other, how they're special in other areas, like with Queen with Tech. We're not talking about that stuff. We're just talking about the strength part. I understand that. But when you inject all these other aspects of what makes a person or, being, creature, whatever in this series, you're going to run into some problems because it creates agendas that don't need to be created, right? And with the infighting, and it just creates dysfunction, which we'll see towards the end of this. Because him talking about friendship being BS, that should be an automatic red flag for y'all for some talk no jutsu. Y'all should already know what the time it is. And that's the one part I don't like him saying that, because to me that just signifies, right, as important as friendship really is, and companionship or partnership, whatever ship you sailing on, right? When it gets brought up by a bad guy in the series, you just know what's coming. I really hope it don't go that route. I'm not saying that's why he gonna lose, because in this series, a lot of times we've seen the ideals of characters do not change even after they lose. They might not try to do whatever their ultimate goal was, might not be a thing no more. You know what I mean? But for the most part, like Don Creed's opinions did not change about how you're supposed to do stuff. You know what I mean? All these characters, their opinion, like Buggy, all these characters for the most part, they are who they are. You know? But I heard him just hearing that phrase, it just set off a bell like, Kaido, why'd you say that, bro? Why'd you say that, Kaido? Why did you say that? You was fine up until that point. As soon as you start talking about friendship, who show up, man? To go with the code. The rubber band, man. The phenom for Fuchsia. I was like, well. And again, we see another dope attack from Yamato, this white serpent. Shout out to Orochimaru, right? Speaking of Orochimaru. Oh, man. Sorry. I'm laughing because, you know, the community as a whole is big. But I don't keep up with everything and everybody. So sometimes it be people I run into or something. I have a clip of a video I see or something where I'm like, man, this dude is funny. Let me go check him out. And then you realize this guy has like a million subscribers or something. You're like, how did I not know about this dude? But the reason I'm telling you about that is because I didn't know about DJ Champ. I just happened to, somebody showed me one of his videos, and then I ended up watching something. And I think it was last night. Somebody compiled some clips from TikTok or something, and he was making fun of Boruto, which I haven't really watched any of that. Like, that's a different conversation. But the Orochimaru Fruit Loops. That's what made me think about that this morning. I was like, oh, I forgot, because I read the chapter again and I forgot about the white snake part, and it just all anyway. Y'all know what I mean. But that attack with Jack Culver, and this is the second time we've seen Luffy. It's implied that he could change gears on command like that with just a phrase now. No, because OT earlier when she was finna go for the meteor, right? With the hype part that they just animated not too long ago. His eyes had already changed. He was tied down, right? So it was even, I try to stay away from the difference between manga and anime unless it's something very specific, right? Because who cares at the end of the day? But when he seen Yamato, I'm assuming at the time he could have been using Future Sight. This is why he turned off. He was beginning to turn on Gear 4, and he immediately turned it off because you see his eyes change back to just normal, but none of his body had changed yet. And in the anime, when Yamato steps and the club hits the ground, you can see Luffy's reaction. So I'm like, did he just see the future already? They don't make it. He doesn't do the Katakuri thing, So you don't know what he's using it, but he turns it off for whatever reason, and that's what I thought about. With this chapter is him just being a Snake Man immediately. So we see in slight changes in the mastery of the Gomu Gomu, where it's not always in your face, right? Like it's in your face when we get a new form or a new attack or something like that. But there is times like, and even in Wano, something I brought up with how Luffy has changed in size, and I think that part had to do with the whole cuff situation because his body, right? He couldn't use his abilities because of the slight amount of sea stone, right? That's the only time technically Luffy's never been rubber, and it's something I talked about in one of my videos like almost a year ago or so about Luffy in general, which it probably boosted his base strength to begin with because he was flesh and blood for the first time in probably 15 years. Not 15, 12 years, something like that. So I just thought it was interesting. But him changing immediately while standing on top, he just said Snake Man, he was a Snake Man. That's what I'd be wanting to see from him. And I think with Snake Man, the reason, like I talked about before, has to do with hockey efficiency. The amount of surface area, it's not like Luffy calculates this stuff, but like he knows how much hockey he's using when he does something, right? Or how much, in his case, using the rubber ability is passive, so it's not like a law where he has to use actual stamina, so to speak. I guess the only time he's using stamina is if he's overstretching. We've never seen him get tired from using his ability, and it's so far off the top of my head is the only ability we've seen still work in water. Like when in Back in Water 7, we've seen that. Like I don't know why that is, but he's the only person we've really seen that. We know characters' ability can interact with water. We see that all the time, but Jack is a fisherman. That's why nothing happened to him. But he couldn't transform underwater. It's not like he could have turned into a mammoth and then just suck the water up and then spit it. Like he couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. But with Luffy's passive ability, that didn't seem to be the case. So I forgot why I was getting into that, but just how distinct Luffy's abilities are compared to even other Devil Fruit users. I don't think a Logia would be able to do that either. Come to think of it, becoming intangible underwater just doesn't seem like something that you'd be able to do. But anyway, seeing him do that, I was just thinking about all his abilities over the years and how long he's been mastering his fruit. That's something I talk about all the time. Like most of these top tiers have had theirs for at least 2 decades almost. So the amount of advantage by experience alone, and then with us just getting into Conqueror's coding of all things, and Luffy's gonna be a beast, man. I still think they get clapped right now because I don't know if Kaido's doing like the thing with Kaido turning into an actual dragon. I'm wondering if that form, like I've brought this up before, is that a regenerative form? Um, because he did get cracked. He did go white eye for a few. I mean, he got double cracked by Cobra and this white serpent attack. And I have to assume, physically speaking, just because Yamato's probably better with hockey than Luffy is. Um, to me, that's just what it seems like based on all of her attacks and clashes. She understands the concept. I mean, Luffy will eventually, but right now it's just an experience thing. Yamato is just more experienced with it by what I've seen so far. So I'd have to assume White Serpent has to have at least equal power, right, of what Snake Man Cobra would do. And we've seen that Luffy is stronger now than when he fought Katakuri, but I mean, Katakuri tanked the Cobra with no issues. So that's why in the next scene, seeing Kaido in regenerative form, like, but then, and this is something else I wanted to bring up about Yamato, and I wanted to see what the Fizz was gonna, how they were gonna translate, because in the early edition, Yamato says like divine something, divine step, I think, and it stuck out to me because I'm like, divine, because Because when I first read, I'm like, that kind of reminded me of Shumpo, like saying that as an activation or something. But now I see it's called Divine Swiftness, and then she uses a Conqueror's Coded Attack right after. It was something I've been thinking about is divine, like with Roger, right? Divine Departure, what he used on Odin, is divine a prefix state, like a prefix to using a Conqueror's Attack. You know what I mean? Like, because it's already called, depending on the translations, right? It could be. I'm not even going to get into all that, but that I just thought that was interesting that Yamato's seemed to activate something right before the attack. It was divine swiftness, then White Serpent right after, and she did speed blitz, and we know it had to be a speed blitz because she got there pretty much on time with Luffy, and we know how fast Culverin is. It's fast. So my thing with Snake Man though is Snake Man is the Gear Second version of Gear Fourth. I say this all the time, which lacks the raw strength. And even with Rio, I think we're gonna start seeing Luffy be able to shift in and out of forms, where he's gonna have the, I don't want to say the appearance. That's not really the word I'm looking for, but it would almost be Logia like, and that's something I've talked about before. Obviously, like when we first saw Katakuri, something things that Luffy, like if you go back to my Luffy video, which I might have to redo that now, because of some stuff still applies. Like I made that, like I said, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Man, that's crazy. But the thing about Yamato I want to talk about was how come Yamato doesn't fight with swords? As much as she respects the culture of Wano and the samurai, she does not have a sword. She fights with a club. So I was thinking, like, what if at the end of Wano, depending on what Yamato does, whether she stays in Wano, I'm almost certain Enma and Amino Habakiri probably go to her. Because it's odd to me that she still fights a club which would represent the Oni people. And I don't know how she feels about being the Oni herself. Maybe that's the other part of why she admired Odin so much, was because compared to the only Oni that she's seen, maybe, which is Kaido, he's not a good person. And although there are bad humans, the best role model she's ever seen was a human. So I don't know if that's part of the problem with Kaido, is not only the fact that the Odin thing is just like whatever, but it's the fact that it's a human too, because of the bias that we know. So I'm going to talk about more with Yamato probably on Monday or Tuesday, because I want to do a whole video about her. I just wanted to put that idea out there for y'all. Anyway, appreciate talking to y'all again. It's been cool. I'll see y'all Monday or Tuesday. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. All that good stuff. That's it. Class dismissed.